everyone, this is Kathy, and welcome back to Kathy's Happy Home and another Sunday Praise. Sorry, this is going up on Monday instead of Sunday. Yesterday, I got the worst migraine. I have not been this sick with a migraine in many years. So, I went to bed, but God's Word never goes to bed. And we're going to continue on today then with Esther chapter 3, and we're going to be talking about Haman's conspiracy. So let's start with verse 1 of chapter 3. After these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes who were with him. Now, Haman was an ungodly man, but God had a purpose in letting him be promoted. And lots of times we think that people shouldn't be in the positions they are, but God has a purpose for putting them there. And Haman was a descendant of King Agag, who is the king of the Amalekites. And these people were Israel's sworn enemies for many generations. Let's read verses 2 and 3. And all the king's servants who were within the king's gate bowed and paid homage to Haman, for so the king had commanded concerning him. But Mordecai would not bow or pay homage. Then the king's servants who were within the king's gate said to Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the king's command?" Now, there doesn't seem to be a biblical command saying that you shouldn't pay homage to your rulers. It was a sign of respect for a political leader. But Mordecai knew something about this man Haman, and that persuaded him that Haman was unworthy of such an honor. And maybe it was simply his ancestry. Maybe he said a Jew should not bow to an Amalekite. But in any case, Mordecai decides he is not going to bow to Haman. And the people are asking him, "Why aren't you doing this? I mean, it's no big thing. It's just, bow your head when he walks by. It's no big thing." But Mordecai had principles, and he wasn't going to give up his principles for this. And verses 4 to 6, it says, "Now it happened when they spoke to him daily, and he would not listen to them, that they told it to Haman to see whether Mordecai's words would stand. For Mordecai had told them that he was a Jew. And when Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow or pay him homage, Haman was filled with wrath. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him of the people of Mordecai. Instead, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, the people of Mordecai." So apparently Haman is so full of seeing all these people bowing to him that he doesn't even notice Mordecai at first. But his aides end up pointing out, "Yeah, everyone's bowing to you except that guy over there." And he was an extremely proud man, but he was also an insecure man. And he only considered himself a success if everybody considered him a success. So he decides to take out his anger on not just Mordecai, but all the Jews in the entire kingdom. He hated all Jews, just like the Jews hated the Amalekites. So in verse 7, it says, "In the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is, the lot, before Haman, to determine the day and the month until it fell on the 12th month, which is the month of Adar." So this is like throwing dice. They used it to leave a decision to chance or to the God who guides every chance. And since this took place in the first month, it's almost a year before they're going to be able to do this, getting rid of all the Jews. the Jews are going to be attacked and massacred in 11 months. So the long delay between the first month and the month of the massacre was ordained by God, which allowed the Jewish people to get ready, as you'll see as we go along. In verses 8 and 9, then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from all other peoples, and they do not keep the king's laws. Therefore it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. If it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who do the work to bring it into the king's treasury. So Haman's charge was the most dangerous possible. It was a half-truth. Aren't half-truths the most dangerous thing around? Just enough truth that you can get away with it, but the rest is a lie. And yes, the Jews were a certain people scattered and dispersed throughout the kingdom. And yes, they did have their own laws. But their own laws, to this point, didn't prevent them from obeying the king's laws as loyal subjects. In fact, Mordecai's refusal to bow before Haman was not based on the law of God, but on a principle of personal integrity. It seems that Haman was almost completely unfamiliar with the idea of personal integrity. So Haman suggested organizing the mass murder of the Jewish people. He also neglected to tell King Ahasuerus how many of these certain people there were in his kingdom, and Ahasuerus probably thought this was a relatively small threat. And this promise that he gives of a bribe, the money that he's going to give, the silver talents, that's not coming out of Haman's pocket. He's going to steal this from the Jews he murders and give it to the king. Okay, verses 10 to 11. So the king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, the money and the people are given to you to do with them as seems good to you. Again, King Ahasuerus probably had no idea what he was agreeing to. He probably believed that he merely was agreeing to the execution of a handful of dangerous revolutionaries in his kingdom. He didn't expect it to be a whole people. Verses 12 to 15. Then the king's scribes were called on the 13th day of the first month, and a decree was written according to all that Haman had commanded, to the king's satraps, to the governors who were over each province, to the officials of all people, to every province according to its script, and to every people in their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus it was written and sealed with the king's signet ring. And the letters were sent by couriers into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all the Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. A copy of the document was to be issued as law in every province, being published for all people, that they should be ready for that day. The couriers went out, hastened by the king's command, and the decree was proclaimed in Shushan, the citadel, or the capital. So the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Shushan was perplexed. With this, an empire-wide death sentence on the Jews was announced by the king. This was like other attacks against the Jewish people in history, except it was announced well in advance. When the king sat down to drink, he thought he had done a good thing. He thought he was doing great, but he didn't really understand what he had done. Haman also sat down to drink and thought he had done a good thing too, and he knew exactly what he intended to do. Despite this, the city of Shushan was perplexed. The citizens of the empire knew Jewish people who lived among them, and they knew that they were good citizens who weren't causing any trouble at all. They were friends with them. They probably were down in their marketplace buying fruits and vegetables from them and other things. And therefore they were confused that such a decree came forth declaring that these Jews were dangerous enemies. especially little babies. I mean, how could that be a dangerous enemy? And again, this all came to pass because of the insecurity and wounded pride of one wicked man, Haman. Well, how does this apply to us today? We see Haman is a smooth talker, isn't he? And he puts on a front, and it looks like he's, the greatest thing around. And today we see people in authority who have a smooth front, who put on that they're good people and they're really not. And it's so important as we choose our leaders, especially here in the United States, we choose our own leaders. And you watching me in other countries, your government, you have to be careful and look at who they are, what they say, what they do, and make up your mind whether this is a good choice or not. So that's it for today, and I'll be back on Tuesday with another Kathy's Happy Home. Thanks for watching.